I'm an elite banker, so I deserve to remarry a beautiful and competent girlfriend. Being with a gloomy woman like you is bad luck for me. I'm divorcing a useless person who doesn't earn a penny. How can you say that? What about our child? What are you planning to do? You take care of Lily. I'm going to have a new child with my mistress. Left by my husband with my daughter, and to make matters worse, he started talking about remarrying after getting his mistress pregnant. Fed up with my husband's attitude, I decided to divorce. The divorce went through smoothly, but I had other important things to do. I went to my husband's workplace to handle an important procedure where my husband and his mistress, smirking, approached me. "Did you miss me so much that you came to my workplace?" "Haha, you must have come to withdraw savings since you don't have money as a housewife, right?" Facing the two of them, looking down on me like trash, I told them with a cold expression, I came to withdraw $6 million. Upon learning that I had won a large sum from a lottery ticket I bought on a whim, my husband desperately begged for my forgiveness, completely changing his tune. "My name is Emily. I am currently 32 years old. My childhood dream was to become a caregiver. I wanted to be helpful to people. After graduating from high school, I attended a specialized school for care welfare and successfully passed. I was able to fulfill my childhood dream. Working as a caregiver was hard, but I found great fulfillment in being thanked by the patients. One day, I was invited to a mixer by a close coworker. There I met Ethan. My first impression was, wow, he's handsome. I wanted to talk to him, but he seemed like the cool, quiet type, and I wondered if he disliked such events. However, as luck would have it, we were headed in the same direction afterward. As we walked to the station together, I found he was surprisingly talkative, and we had a great time. Ethan was just shy, not cool or anything. I found that gap endearing. We quickly became close and decided to get married. However, through mutual acquaintances, I later learned that Ethan had another girlfriend at the time. I was shocked to discover it was a case of two-timing, but I only found out after we were married. Regardless, I believed he had chosen me purely out of love. In the early days of our marriage, we enjoyed watching sports and going to the movies on our days off, fully enjoying our newlywed life. Buying lottery tickets became a shared hobby. It started when we first stumbled upon a lottery ticket vendor while going to a sports event. We bought a sports lottery ticket on a whim. Surprisingly, we won. It was probably beginner's luck. It wasn't a huge amount, but we got quite into it, buying small amounts regularly. For example, we'd buy tickets on days considered lucky, or if my horoscope was good that day. It was one of the few hobbies we both enjoyed. By our 4th year of marriage, we wanted a child but were having trouble conceiving. We were considering fertility treatments when we discovered I was pregnant. "That's great, Emily. We're finally going to be parents." When I confirmed the positive pregnancy test, my husband was teary-eyed with joy. "I'm so happy. But we can only be sure after going to the OB/GYN, right? I'm so anxious, but somehow I feel everything will be okay. It's just a hunch." The next day, I nervously went to the OB/GYN. The doctor confirmed on the ultrasound, "Congratulations, you are pregnant." I could see for myself that I was indeed pregnant. I was so happy that I immediately emailed my husband from the hospital's waiting room. "I'm pregnant, just entered the 5th week. Once we're in the safe period, we need to tell both our parents." The email was read immediately, and he replied, "Really? That's great. I'm so happy. Thank you, Emily. Please take care getting home." He usually takes a while to respond, but he must have been really happy this time. I returned home savoring my happiness. That night, "It's going to be exciting from now on, Ethan. Do you want a boy or a girl?" Tough choice, I'd be happy with either. But if it's a girl, I might be too sad when she gets married. If it's a boy, it'd be fun to play a lot while he's small. Well, yeah. But if it's a girl, I'd love to talk about love stories with her. We had such light-hearted conversations while eating dinner. Soon after, we found out the baby's gender. Throughout the pregnancy, my husband supported me, and although it was tough, I had a happy maternity life without any major problems. Time flew by, and I safely gave birth to a lovely baby girl we named Lily. We talked about overcoming challenges together as a couple, but after the pregnancy and birth, I quit my job. Originally, I worked as a caregiver, which was physically demanding and involved night shifts, so continuing was difficult. However, my husband's attitude changed drastically after I became a full-time housewife. When we both worked full-time, we shared household chores. But once I became a housewife, he would say things like, "You've been at home all day, right? Why haven't you cleaned? You must be bored, right? Make more elaborate meals," and started to berate me with his attitude like that. Our marital relationship gradually weakened. And although we shared a bed, our intimate life became non-existent. He only tolerates sleeping in the same bed because he has nowhere else to sleep. He even says, "I don't even want to sleep with you." I think to myself, then sleep on the floor, but I can never actually say that. We hardly have any meaningful conversations anymore. Ethan only talks about practical matters. Even when I try to initiate a conversation, he doesn't listen and just responds indifferently. "Hey, about the drama yesterday. Listen, today, Lily. Did I see?" That's how our conversations go. He only responds with or "I see." He doesn't seem interested in expanding the conversation. The only time he gives a proper response is when he's angry. "What's this food? It's too bland. I can't enjoy this meal. I thought too much flavor isn't good for health. Shut up. You can't cook. Your cleaning is sloppy. You're completely useless at everything. If I hadn't married you, a woman like you wouldn't have been picked up by anyone." He often says things like that. Eventually, he even treats our 3-year-old daughter Lily coldly. "Daddy, look. Lily drew this." She shows him a drawing of him, but he just dismisses it with, "Oh, I see." A child wouldn't grow fond of such a father. Still, I try hard not to upset him and avoid fights. But lately, I've been thinking, Emily thought, am I just a housemaid under the guise of a housewife? At home, he's like this, but he works at a major bank. My friends envy me, saying, "Wow, a banker husband. You're so lucky, and he seems to love you so much." Indeed, Ethan is good at keeping up appearances. Once at a friend's wedding, he said in front of everyone, "Emily is great at cooking, cleaning, and laundry. She's a really good wife." Hearing this, my friends were all excited, exclaiming, "Wow, that's so sweet." However, in reality, at home, he has no interest in me or our daughter and is just an abusive husband. He's a completely different person at home and outside. And my husband, Ethan, was incredibly selfish. On weekends, he'd leave without saying where he was going, returning home past midnight, never helping with household chores or childcare during the week. I never knew when he'd finish work. He'd come home late without any explanation. And if I asked, he'd snap, "What I do and where I go is none of your business. Just be grateful that an elite like me brings money home." He'd even say, "You're always at home, but can't handle household chores. A useless person like you has no right to complain to an elite like me. You've lost all your charm and don't look like a woman anymore, just using childcare as an excuse." I was devastated and cried when he first said that. Despite that, I didn't give up and tried to rebuild our relationship. But with Ethan hardly ever home and always in a bad mood in the mornings, our lives just drifted apart. This led to a de facto separation within our home. Others might think I should just get a divorce. Indeed, the thought of divorce had crossed my mind many times. But as a full-time housewife, could I raise my young daughter Lily alone? Would I be able to find a job quickly if I started job hunting now? I worried about whether I could fulfill Lily's wishes, like attending classes or going to college, and provide her with a comfortable life. One day, I was at the supermarket alone buying groceries. Then I saw a lottery stand in the corner with a sign that said, "Lucky Day." Emily thought I used to buy lottery tickets with Ethan when we saw that sign. Those were happy times. I reminisced about the happier days, but those seemed like a distant past now. Ethan had changed. In a fit of desperation, I went to the lottery stand, buying a ticket alone for the first time. I thought, why not, and bought one. I might even talk to Ethan about buying the lottery ticket. If I win, maybe we could have a light-hearted conversation like we used to, like, let's do this or let's go there. With that faint hope, I returned home. But even that day, Ethan didn't come home until after 10 p.m., after putting Lily to bed. I was watching TV on the living room sofa when I got a call from Ethan's phone. "Hello, what time are you coming home?" "Are you Ethan's wife?" I heard an unfamiliar woman's voice. A bad feeling washed over me, and I felt a chill. "Who are you?" "I'm Karen. I'm Ethan's girlfriend. Your husband is sleeping right next to me." The caller was Ethan's mistress. "I've been wanting to talk to you." "I love Ethan, and he feels the same. To be blunt, we want you to get a divorce." Ethan said, "My housewife wife is almost done serving her purpose. He'll probably bring it up soon, so please start preparing for the divorce." I was furious at my cheating husband, but I had been unaware of his affairs before and during our marriage. I had suspected him of cheating. He always came home around 10 p.m. on weekdays and was never home on weekends. He was glued to his phone and avoided any physical contact with me. While I wasn't surprised by his affair, Karen's brazen and unapologetic manner made my skin crawl. Her confident and triumphant tone, and the thought of Ethan sleeping soundly at his mistress's house every night, phone in hand, made my blood boil. "I see. I can't say anything without talking to my husband, so I'll end the call now. Let's talk again later." "No, it'll be the same even if you talk to Ethan." "I'm pregnant. It's Ethan's child. Please get a divorce as soon as possible for the sake of this baby in my belly." Karen's statement left me speechless. "Pregnant? You must be kidding." "No joke. I'm an elite banker. I'll provide for Karen and the baby," Ethan said. "So I'll marry him, and we'll raise this child together. Time for a wife swap, haha. Oh, and can you send Ethan's stuff over to my place quickly? This woman must be out of her mind. I have a precious, beautiful daughter at home. And Ethan parading around as an elite banker everywhere was just appalling." I was so fed up that I calmly asked for her address instead of arguing. "All right, what's your address?" I said. She replied, "Oh, aren't you obedient? It's at XX Town, YY City." I noted it down meticulously and hung up. Ethan returned home late, admitting to the affair as soon as I confronted him about Karen's call. "Oh, she just spills everything, haha. I'm an elite banker, so I deserve someone beautiful and competent like Karen. I stayed with you, a mere housewife, thinking you might be useful. But lately, I've realized that being with a gloomy woman like you brings down my luck. I'm divorcing a useless person who doesn't earn a penny, hava." His cruel words felt like sharp stabs to my heart. "Luck, useless housewife, but we have a daughter to think about." I gathered my strength to ask, "What about Lily?" "You take care of Lily. I'm going to have a new child. Of course, I'll pay the property division. A mere housewife like you can't live without it, haha. Unlike you, it's easy for a high earner like me to pay property division, haha. No apology, no regard for our daughter. Does this man even have a heart? Something inside me snapped. I had no more attachment to this man. I had to protect my daughter alone. Ethan kept talking about Karen, who I hadn't even asked about. She was a 24-year-old newcomer at his office, popular and beautiful. Ethan gleamed as he said, "I'm leaving you, an old lady, to start a second life with someone young and cute like her." His words in his affair had hurt me deeply, but I couldn't even cry. I just wished for their misfortune. Ethan left that day with minimal belongings, saying he'd send the divorce papers once everything was settled. He didn't return the next day or the day after. He was probably staying with Karen. I started preparing for the divorce. I consulted a lawyer before filing, as I heard it's better to arrange property division beforehand. I sent Ethan's belongings to the address Karen gave and began preparing to move back to my parents' house with Lily. While clearing out the house, I found more of his stuff and contacted him. "I found more of your belongings while cleaning," I said. He casually replied he'd come the next day to collect them. The following day, Ethan arrived, and to my surprise, Karen was with him. "Nice to meet you, ex-wife. I'm feeling sick from morning sickness. Did you sign the divorce papers? Can you hurry up and finalize the divorce?" Karen was indeed beautiful and much younger than me. Seeing Ethan holding her, seemingly pregnant, was revolting. I just wanted them to leave quickly. "Here are the divorce papers and your belongings," I said, handing over the completed divorce papers. Ethan roughly signed them and handed them back. "Here, make sure you file these today." Sure, I replied. With that, they left. I sighed in relief. Now I had important procedures to handle beyond the divorce. The divorce with Ethan was finalized, and I received a lump sum property division payment. It was only to be expected, given his frequent boasts about being an elite banker. A week later, I visited the bank where Ethan worked for an important matter. Ethan approached me with a smirk as I tried to proceed with my business. "What, you miss me?" "You're hung up on me, huh?" Then Karen, who was supposed to be at the reception, came out too. "Oh, look who it is, the ex-wife. What are you doing here? Let me guess, you're a housewife with no money, so you're here to withdraw savings, huh?" Haha. Their sarcasm was unbearable. "No, I'm here to withdraw something else." "What, $6 million? What?" Yes, the lottery ticket I'd bought at the supermarket turned out to be a winner. When I used to buy lottery tickets with Ethan, we would excitedly check the results together. But this time, I bought it alone and didn't expect much. Casually checking the results online, I saw the message, "Congratulations on your win." I scrolled down, thinking it was just a small prize, but saw an amount I had never seen before. Prize amount $6 million. Counting the digits, I realized it was $6 million. I was in shock and just stared at the screen, unable to move. The whole day felt like a dream, and I couldn't focus on housework or childcare. The next day, I checked again on my computer, and it still showed $6 million. I followed the instructions for claiming my prize, feeling somewhat detached as if it were happening to someone else. I checked with my lawyer whether a lottery win before a divorce would be subject to property division, but since the divorce was due to Ethan's actions, and our relationship had broken down, it was not subject to division. When I explained this to them, Ethan and Karen were incredulous. "What? Why didn't you say that? That's not fair. It should be part of the property division. You cheated and got your mistress pregnant, and you're saying this isn't subject to division. I've already confirmed it with my lawyer." "That's a lie." Ethan raised his voice. When we were together, we never won that much. Why didn't you use your luck with me, useless wife? How can you get all that money? You said it yourself, didn't you? Being with a gloomy woman like me brings down luck. Maybe the bad luck was because of you, huh? Karen pulled at Ethan's arm, saying, "What's with this woman? Ethan, let's go. It doesn't matter how much money she has. Let's just leave." But Ethan didn't move and said something unbelievable. "Hey, Emily, I'm sorry. Let's get back together, huh? I was wrong to belittle you and have an affair. Let's start over." "What? What are you saying? You promised to support me and our baby. You said you loved me, and now you want to go back to your ex-wife. But with $6 million, we could quit our jobs, buy a house, a nice car, go on trips. Wouldn't that be great?" Ethan, blinded by money, proposed getting back together. His despicable words ignited a fireball of anger inside me. "You are a terrible person. I couldn't believe I had spent years living with such a despicable man. I'm sorry for everything until now. I'll cherish you from now on. Let's reconsider, huh?" Ethan grabbed my arm and wouldn't let go. I shouted back, "Don't you dare joke with me." He seemed surprised by my outburst and flinched. At that moment, someone from the back of the bank approached us. "Ethan, what's going on?" "Mr. Branch Manager." The person was the bank's branch manager. Ethan and Karen were flustered at his arrival. "Nothing. It's nothing." "I heard about what's been going on from a staff member. Are you sure it's nothing?" "Well, it's just that. I'll talk with you later about this and your relationship with Karen." Ethan and Karen's faces turned pale. I guess the bank wouldn't take kindly to infidelity and pregnancy scandals being openly discussed in the workplace. I watched the three of them with the thought, "Serves you right." As the branch manager approached me, he said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry for the discomfort you've experienced here." He bowed deeply to me, and Ethan and Karen followed suit, likely due to the branch manager's presence. "Oh, no, it's fine. You came to withdraw your lottery winnings, right? Let me assist you with that." Thanks to the branch manager's smooth handling, I successfully withdrew my winnings and suddenly became a millionaire. A few days later, Ethan kept calling me incessantly. I regretted not blocking his number. At first, I ignored the calls, but they were so persistent that I finally answered. "Hello, Emily. Thank goodness you answered." Ever since that day, my boss has been furious. They say having someone like you involved affects the bank's reputation. Isn't that unfair? I've worked hard all this time. I sighed heavily, understanding the situation. That boss sounds like a wise person. Maybe they think someone with your lack of character could eventually harm the bank. Ethan stuttered at my calm response. "Besides, the only thing you've worked hard on is womanizing, right? Well, that's. I really couldn't care less about your precarious position at the bank. Take care." I hung up, feeling a bit more relieved. Later, I heard from an acquaintance that Ethan was demoted and transferred to a rural branch. He was punished for the scandal and disorder he caused in the bank. Karen, having witnessed the whole scene of Ethan pleading to get back with me after learning about my winnings, furiously confronted Ethan. "Actually, the baby isn't yours." "Well, maybe it's not yours. I had other marriage candidates, and I thought marrying an elite banker like you would be a good choice. But a demoted, uncertain bank employee is of no use to me. I'll marry someone better. Goodbye." She had other suitors and was only considering remarrying Ethan because she thought he was an elite banker. Once he was just an ordinary employee with an unstable position, she decided he was no longer useful and left him. Ethan was eventually abandoned by his mistress, left by his wife and child, and found his position at work in jeopardy. It was a tale more frightening than any horror story. It truly felt like a well-deserved comeuppance. As for me, with the lottery winnings, I moved to a new apartment with my daughter. While the $6 million windfall meant I could. I have chosen not to work. I decided to be cautious and soon found a job, returning to my role as a full-time caregiver. I wanted to avoid reckless spending, considering my daughter's future. However, I did indulge in a bit of luxury. I took my daughter and my parents on a trip to Hawaii, staying in a great hotel. Being able to show my gratitude to my parents and spending quality time with my daughter made it all worthwhile. Moving forward, I look forward to traveling more with my daughter, learning new things, and maybe finding new hobbies and passions. I'm excited to start this new chapter of life with my lovely daughter, living happily ever after.
You're nothing without me, Evelyn. Remember that. Dominic's words cut deep as I cradle our newborn daughter, Aria. I look down at her innocent face, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I feel a wave of despair wash over me. How did I get here? How did I let myself become so trapped, so helpless? I've always been a strong, independent woman, but Dominic has a way of making me feel small and insignificant. Since Aria's birth, his controlling behavior has escalated to new heights. He dictates my every move, from what I wear to who I can see. He even controls our finances, leaving me completely dependent on during my maternity leave. I'm going out, Dominic announces, grabbing his keys from the counter. I expect dinner to be ready when I get back. I nod silently, not daring to argue. I've learned the hard way that defiance only leads to more pain. As the door slams behind him, I let out a shaky breath and hug Aria closer to my chest. I think back to the early days of our relationship when Dominic seemed like the perfect man. Charming, successful, and attentive, he swept me off my feet. Our whirlwind romance led to a quick marriage, and before I knew it, I was pregnant with Aria. But now, as I sit alone in our lavish apartment, surrounded by all the trappings of wealth, I feel more trapped than ever. Dominic's true colors have emerged, and I'm left wondering how I ever fell for his facade. A sudden cry from Aria jolts me back to the present. I rock her gently, whispering soothing words as I try to calm her. But even as I comfort my daughter, I can feel the weight of Dominic's control bearing down on me. I glance at the clock, realizing I only have a few hours before he returns. I need to start dinner, but the thought of facing another evening of his criticism and verbal abuse makes my stomach churn. As I lay Aria down in her crib, I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me is a shell of her former self. Dark circles under her eyes, a forced smile masking the pain. I hardly recognize her, but as I watch Aria drift off to sleep, a flicker of determination sparks within me. I can't let my daughter grow up thinking this is normal, that this is what love looks like. I need to find a way out, not just for myself, but for her. I take a deep breath and straighten my shoulders. I may feel trapped and helpless now, but I refuse to let Dominic break me. I will find a way to escape his grasp, to build a better life for Aria and myself. As I head to the kitchen to start dinner, I silently vow to myself that this will be the last meal I cook under Dominic's roof. I don't know how, and I don't know when, but I will find the strength to break free from this nightmare. For Aria's sake, and for my own, I have to. As I sit in the darkness of Aria's nursery, my mind drifts back to the beginning of my relationship with Dominic. It all seemed so perfect, like a fairy tale come to life. I was 28, a successful young woman with a promising career when I met him at a charity event. He was 35, charming, and incredibly handsome. I was instantly smitten. Our courtship was a whirlwind of expensive dinners, lavish gifts, and grand gestures. Dominic made me feel like I was the center of his universe. He promised me the world, and I believed every word. "Evelyn, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," he whispered in my ear as we danced at a gala. "I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy." I melted into his arms, convinced that I had found my soulmate. When he proposed just 3 months later, I didn't hesitate to say yes. Our wedding was a grand affair, with no expense spared. I felt like a princess as I walked down the aisle in my designer gown, Dominic waiting for me at the altar with a smile that could light up the room. "I love you, Evelyn," he he said as he slipped the ring on my finger. I promise to cherish you forever. I believed him with all my heart. We settled into married life, and for a while everything was perfect. Dominic continued to shower me with attention and gifts, and I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. But then, just a few months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. I was overjoyed, but Dominic's reaction was not what I expected. "A baby now?" he asked, his brow furrowed. I thought we agreed to wait a few years. I was taken aback by his response. We had discussed starting a family, but I didn't realize he had such a specific timeline in mind. "I know it's a bit sooner than we planned, but isn't it wonderful news?" I asked, trying to gauge his reaction. Dominic's face softened, and he pulled me into an embrace. "Of course it is, darling. I'm just surprised, that's all. We'll make it work." But as my pregnancy progressed, I began to notice subtle changes in Dominic's behavior. He became more controlling, more possessive. He started questioning my every move, demanding to know where I was and who I was with at all times. I chalked it up to nerves about impending fatherhood and tried to reassure him that everything would be fine. But deep down, a nagging feeling told me that something wasn't right. When Aria was born, Dominic's behavior only intensified. He criticized everything I did, from the way I changed her diaper to the way I held her. He insisted on being present for every feeding, every bath time, every moment of her life. At first, I thought he was just being an attentive father. But as the weeks turned into months, I realized that his attention was more about control than love. "You're doing it wrong," he would snap as I tried to soothe Aria's cries. "Give her to me. I'll show you how it's done." I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells, trying to anticipate his every mood and whim. I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, but I didn't dare complain. I was afraid of what he might do if I pushed back. Looking back, I can see all the red flags I missed. The way he isolated me from my friends and family, the way he made me feel like I was nothing without him. I was so blinded by love that I couldn't see the truth. But now, as I sit in the darkness, watching my daughter sleep, I know I can't let this continue. I have to find a way out, not just for myself, but for Aria. She deserves a better life than this. I just hope I have the strength to do what needs to be done. Aria's cries pierce the night, and I stumble out of bed, exhausted. It's been weeks since I've had a full night's sleep, and the toll is starting to show. As I enter the nursery, I find Dominic already there, holding our daughter. "I've got this," he says, his voice cold. "Go back to bed." I hesitate, wanting to comfort my own child, but the look in Dominic's eyes tells me not to argue. I retreat to our bedroom, feeling helpless and alone. The next morning, I'm in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Dominic storms in, his face contorted with anger. "Why isn't the laundry done?" he demands, holding up a shirt. "I have a big meeting today, and I need this pressed." I glance at the clock, realizing I've lost track of time while caring for Aria. "I'm sorry, I'll do it right now," I say, reaching for the shirt, but Dominic yanks it away, his eyes narrowing. "You're always making excuses." He sneers. "I work hard to provide for this family, and you can't even handle simple household chores." I feel my cheeks burn with shame and frustration. "I'm doing the best I can," I protest weakly. Dominic scoffs. "Your best isn't good enough. I deserve better than this." He storms out of the kitchen, leaving me fighting back tears. I know I should stand up for myself, but I'm too tired, too beaten down. Later that day, I'm trying to soothe a fussy Aria when the phone rings. It's the bank, informing me that my credit card has been declined. Confused, I hang up and log into our online banking account. What I see makes my blood run cold. Our savings account, the one I thought we were using for Aria's college fund, is nearly empty. Thousands of dollars, gone without a trace. I confront Dominic that evening, holding up the bank statement with shaking hands. "What is this?" I demand. "Where did all our money go?" Dominic barely glances at the paper before shrugging. "I had some expenses come up. Business stuff you wouldn't understand." "Business stuff?" I echo, incredulous. "Dominic, that was our daughter's college fund. How could you just spend it without telling me?" He fixes me with a cold stare. "I don't have to tell you anything. I'm the one who earns the money in this family. I'll spend it how I see fit." I reel back as if slapped. "But we're supposed to be partners," I whisper. "We should make these decisions together." Dominic laughs, a harsh, ugly sound. Partners? You're nothing without me, Evelyn. I gave you everything. This house, those clothes, that baby. You owe me. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Is this what our marriage has become? A transaction? A debt to be paid? I turn away, fighting back tears. I'm going to put Arya to bed, I say, my voice trembling. As I rock my daughter to sleep, I feel a sense of despair wash over me. How did I let things get this bad? How did I become so dependent on a man who treats me like a possession? I think of my own mother, who raised me on her own after my father left. She was so strong, so independent. What would she think of me now, trapped in a marriage with a man who doesn't respect me? I kiss Arya's forehead, feeling a fierce surge of love and protectiveness. I can't let her grow up thinking this is normal. I can't let Dominic's poison infect her too. I may be trapped for now, but I won't let him break me. I'll find a way out, no matter what it takes. For Arya's sake and for my own. I'm at my wit's end when I finally meet best friend Scarlett. We've been friends since college, and she's always been there for me, no matter what. I don't know what to do, I confess, my voice breaking. Dominic is controlling every aspect of my life. I feel like I'm suffocating. Scarlett listens patiently, her brow furrowed with concern. Evelyn, this isn't right, she says gently. He shouldn't be treating you like this. I nod, wiping away tears. I know, but I'm scared, Scarlett. He's threatened to take Arya away from me if I try to leave. Scarlett's eyes widen. He can't do that, she insists. You're Arya's mother. You have rights. She helps me gather evidence of Dominic's deceit and verbal abuse. We take screenshots of the bank statements, documenting the missing funds. I start keeping a journal, writing down every hurtful thing he says to me. Armed with this information, I confront Dominic. We need to talk, I say, my voice shaking but determined. He barely looks up from his phone. Can't it wait? I'm busy. No, it can't wait, I insist. Dominic, I know about the money. I know you've been hiding things from me. At this, he finally meets my gaze, his eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? I hold up the bank statements. You've been spending our savings without telling me. Our daughter's college fund, gone. Dominic scoffs. Is that what this is about? It's just money, Evelyn. I'll make more. It's not just about the money, I say, my voice rising. It's about the lying, the secrets. It's about the way you treat me. He stands up, towering over me. The way I treat you? I give you everything, Evelyn. A beautiful home, a comfortable life. And this is how you repay me? By snooping through my things and making accusations? I take a step back, my heart pounding. I'm not making accusations. I'm telling the truth, and I'm done letting you control me. Dominic's face contorts with rage. You ungrateful bitch, he snarls. If you think you can leave me, think again. I'll make sure you never see Arya again. His words hit me like a slap in the face. You can't do that, I whisper, echoing Scarlett's words. Watch me, he says, his voice cold. I have money, connections. I'll bury you in court. You'll be lucky to get visitation, let alone custody. I feel like I can't breathe. The thought of losing Arya is too much to bear. But then I think of the evidence Scarlett and I have gathered, the bank statements, the journal entries, the recordings of Dominic's threats. I straighten my spine, looking him dead in the eye. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Dominic. I have proof of everything you've done, the lies, the abuse. If you try to take Arya away from me, I'll fight you with everything I have. For a moment, Dominic looks stunned. Then his face twists into an ugly sneer. You think you're so clever, don't you? But you're forgetting one thing. I own you, Evelyn. I own everything, and I'll destroy you before I let you leave me. With that, he storms out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I sink to the floor, my legs shaking. I know this is just the beginning. Dominic won't let me go without a fight, but for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of hope. I'm not alone anymore. I have Scarlett, and I have the truth on my side. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my daughter and myself, even if it means going to war with the man I once loved. With Scarlett's help, I begin secretly planning my escape from Dominic's clutches. We meet in quiet coffee shops and secluded parks, always looking over our shoulders for any sign of my husband. You need to start saving money, Scarlett advises. Open a separate bank account, one that Dominic doesn't know about. I nod, jotting down notes in a small, nondescript notebook. I'll start skimming a little bit from the grocery budget each week. He won't notice if I'm careful. Scarlett also helps me document Dominic's abuse. We take photos of the bruises on my arms, the holes he's punched in the walls during his rages. I save every threatening text message, every cruel email. It's during one of these evidence-gathering sessions that I stumble upon a shocking discovery. I'm going through Dominic's email, looking for anything incriminating, when I find a string of messages between him and his secretary, Tessa. At first, I think they're just work-related, but as I read on, my stomach twists with a sickening realization. They're not just colleagues, they're having an affair. "I miss you," Tessa writes in one email. "Last night was amazing. When can we do it again?" Dominic's response is filled with explicit details of their trysts, of the things he wants to do to her. I feel like I'm going to be sick. But even as the betrayal cuts me to the core, I feel a flicker of something else. Hope. If Dominic is cheating on me, that means I have even more leverage against him. I print out the emails with shaking hands, adding them to my growing pile of evidence. Armed with this new information, I finally work up the courage to file for divorce. Scarlett comes with me to the courthouse, holding my hand as I fill out the paperwork. When we return home, Dominic is waiting for us. "Where have you been?" he demands, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. I take a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "I was filing for divorce," I say, my voice steady. "I'm leaving you, Dominic." For a moment he looks stunned. Then his face contorts with rage. "You can't leave me," he snarls. "I won't let you." He takes a step towards me, his fists clenched, but before he can lay a hand on me, Scarlett steps between us. "Don't you dare touch her," she says, her voice like steel. "We have evidence of everything you've done, the abuse, the cheating. If you come near Evelyn or Arya again, we'll go straight to the police." Dominic's eyes widen as he takes in the folder in Scarlett's hand. "You're bluffing," he says, but I can hear the uncertainty in his voice. "Try me," Scarlett replies, her gaze unwavering. For a long moment, they stare each other down. Then Dominic takes a step back, his face twisting into an ugly sneer. "Fine," he spits. "You want a divorce? You've got it, but don't think for a second that this is over. I'll make your life a living hell, Evelyn. You'll be begging me to take you back." With that, he storms out of the house, slamming the door behind him. I collapse onto the couch, my legs shaking. Scarlett sits beside me, pulling me into a tight hug. "You did it," she whispers. "You're free." But even as relief washes over me, I know that this is just the beginning. Dominic won't let me go without a fight. He'll do everything in his power to make me suffer. But for the first time in years, I feel a glimmer of hope. I've taken the first step towards reclaiming my life, my freedom, and I won't let Dominic break me. Not again. Not ever. The divorce proceedings begin, and I steel myself for the battle ahead. Dominic has hired a high-powered attorney, a shark in an expensive suit, but I have Scarlett by my side and a fierce determination to protect my daughter. Our first meeting is tense, with Dominic glaring at me from across the conference room table. His lawyer, a man with slicked-back hair and a predatory smile, leans forward. "Mrs. Hawthorne," he begins, his voice dripping with condescension. "My client is willing to offer you a generous settlement in exchange for your cooperation in keeping this matter private." I feel a flush of anger rising in my cheeks. "Generous?" I repeat, my voice tight. "You mean hush money, to keep me quiet about the abuse, the cheating." Dominic's lawyer smirks. "Let's not throw around accusations, Mrs. Hawthorne. My client denies any wrongdoing." I lean forward, meeting his gaze head-on. "I have proof," I say, my voice steady. "Emails, text messages, photographs. I'm not afraid to use them." For a moment, the lawyer's smug expression falters. Then he recovers, clearing his throat. "Be that as it may, I think we can all agree that a protracted legal battle is in no one's best interests, especially not your daughter's." At the mention of Arya, I feel a stab of fear. Dominic knows she's my weakness, my Achilles heel. "What do you want?" I ask, my voice tight. Dominic leans forward, his eyes glinting with malice. "Joint custody," he says. "And a gag order. You keep your mouth shut about our marriage, and I'll let you see Arya on weekends." I feel like I've been punched in the gut. The thought of being separated from my daughter, of only seeing her a few days a month, is unbearable. But then I think of the alternative, of Arya growing up in a home filled with anger and violence, of learning that love means pain and fear. I take a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "No," I say, my voice ringing with conviction. I won't agree to that. I want full custody, and I want you out of our lives for good. Dominic's face twists with rage. You can't do that, he snarls. I'm her father. I have rights. You lost those rights the first time you raised a hand to me, I say, my voice shaking with anger. The first time you chose your own selfish desires over your family. I slide a folder across the table, watching as Dominic's lawyer flips through the pages with a growing look of unease. This is just the beginning, I say, my voice steady. If you try to fight me on this, I'll make sure the whole world knows what kind of man you really are. For a long moment, Dominic stares at me, his eyes burning with hatred. Then he turns to his lawyer, muttering something under his breath. The lawyer clears his throat, his expression strained. Perhaps we should take a break, he suggests. Reconvene at a later date, when emotions aren't running quite so high. I nod, feeling a rush of triumph. I know this is just the first battle in what will likely be a long and brutal war. But for now, I've won. As I leave the conference room, Scarlett falls into step beside me, her hand on my shoulder. You were amazing in there, she says, her voice filled with pride. I've never seen you so strong, so fearless. I manage a small smile even as my heart races with adrenaline. I had to be, I say, for Arya, for myself. We step out into the bright sunlight, and I take a deep breath of fresh air. It feels like the first time I've been able to breathe freely in years. I know the road ahead will be hard. Dominic won't give up without a fight, and I'll have to be strong, and stronger than I've ever been. But for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, I can build a better life for my daughter and myself. A life free from fear, from pain, a life filled with love and laughter and joy. And I'll fight like hell to make that life a reality. The divorce is finalized, and I'm granted full custody of Arya. Dominic is ordered to pay child support and alimony, a fact that leaves him seething with rage. But even as I celebrate my victory, I know that he won't let this go easily. Dominic is a man who hates to lose, who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. I'm proven right just a few days later, when I'm awoken in the middle of the night by the sound of shattering glass. I bolt out of bed, my heart pounding, and race to Arya's room. She's sleeping peacefully, her little face relaxed in slumber. But as I turn to leave, I catch a glimpse of movement outside her window. It's Dominic, his face twisted with fury. He's holding a baseball bat, the shattered remains of the window at his feet. You think you've won? He snarls, his voice slurring with drink. You think you can just take my daughter away from me? I feel a rush of fear, followed quickly by anger. Get out of here, Dominic, I say, my voice shaking. You're violating the restraining order. I'll call the police. He laughs, a harsh, ugly sound. Go ahead, he taunts. Call them. By the time they get here, I'll be long gone, and you'll be left picking up the pieces, just like always. I take a step forward, my fists clenched at my sides. I'm not afraid of you anymore, Dominic. I'm done letting you control me, letting you hurt me. His eyes narrow, and he takes a step closer, the bat raised threateningly. You should be afraid, he growls. I'll make your life a living hell, Evelyn. I'll take Arya away from you, one way or another. But even as he speaks, I feel a sense of calm washing over me. I've spent so long living in fear of this man, letting him dictate my every move, but not anymore. I reach into my pocket, my fingers closing around my phone. I have proof, Dominic, I say, my voice steady. Proof of your abuse, your cheating, your illegal business dealings. If you come near me or Arya again, I'll expose everything. For a moment, he looks stunned. Then his face contorts with rage, and he takes another step forward, the bat raised high. But before he can swing, the sound of sirens fills the air. Red and blue lights flash through the broken window, casting an eerie glow over the room. Dominic freezes, his eyes wide with panic. He looks from me to the window, his grip on the bat slackening. This isn't over, he snarls, backing away. I'll find a way to make you pay, Evelyn. I swear it. With that, he turns and runs, disappearing into the night just as the police cars screech to a halt outside. I sink to the floor, my legs shaking with relief. Arya stirs in her crib, her little face scrunching up in confusion. It's okay, baby, I whisper, gathering her into my arms. Mommy's here. You're safe now. The police take my statement, and I show them the evidence I've gathered against Dominic. They assure me that they'll do everything in their power to keep us safe, to make sure he never comes near us again. But even as I nod and thank them, I know that this is just the beginning. Dominic is a man who doesn't know how to lose, who will stop at nothing to get his revenge. I'll have to be vigilant, always looking over my shoulder, always ready for the next attack. But I'm not alone anymore. I have Scarlett and the support of the law on my side. And most importantly, I have Arya, my beautiful, innocent daughter, who deserves a life free from fear and pain. I'll do whatever it takes to give her that life, to build a future for us that's filled with love and laughter and joy, even if it means facing down the devil himself. 5 years have passed since that fateful night when Dominic shattered our window and threatened to take Arya away from me. In that time, I've worked hard to rebuild my life, to create a safe and happy home for my daughter. I've thrown myself into my career, working my way up the corporate ladder at a prestigious marketing firm. My colleagues admire my tenacity, my ability to think outside the box, and come up with creative solutions to even the toughest challenges. But my greatest achievement is Arya. She's grown into a bright, curious 5-year-old with her father's dark hair and my green eyes. She's the light of my life, the reason I get up every morning and face the world with a smile. We have a little routine, Arya and I. Every morning I make her breakfast and pack her lunch, then walk her to the bus stop for kindergarten. In the evenings we curl up on the couch and read stories together, or have dance parties in the living room. It's a simple life, but it's ours, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. One day, as I'm walking Arya to the bus stop, I bump into a familiar face. It's Liam, a single father who lives down the street. I've seen him around the neighborhood, always with his little boy, Max, in tow. "Evelyn, right?" he says, smiling warmly. "I don't think we've officially met. I'm Liam." I shake his hand, feeling a flutter of something in my chest. "Nice to meet you, Liam. This is my daughter, Arya." Arya waves shyly, hiding behind my leg. Liam crouches down to her level, his eyes twinkling. "Hi there, Arya. I like your backpack. Is that a unicorn?" Arya nods, a tiny smile spreading across her face. "Yeah, unicorns are my favorite." Liam grins, standing back up. "Well, maybe we can all get together for a playdate sometime. Max loves unicorns, too." I find myself nodding, a warm feeling spreading through my chest. "That would be great. Here, let me give you my number." As we exchange numbers, I can't help but feel a spark of something. A connection, a sense of possibility. Over the next few weeks, Liam and I start spending more time together. We take the kids to the park, have picnics in the backyard. He's kind and funny and thoughtful, always ready with a joke or a helping hand. And he's an amazing father. I watch him with Max, the way he listens patiently to his son's endless chatter, the way he gets down on the floor to play with him. It's clear that he loves his boy with every fiber of his being. Slowly but surely, I feel myself falling for him, and for the first time in a long time, I allow myself to imagine a future that's not just about survival, but about happiness. But even as I bask in the glow of new love, I can't shake the feeling that Dominic is still out there, waiting for his chance to strike. And I'm right. One evening, as Liam and I are enjoying a quiet dinner while the kids play in the living room, there's a knock at the door. I open it to find Dominic standing there, his face haggard and his eyes wild. "Evelyn," he says, his voice raspy, "I need to talk to you." I feel a rush of fear, followed quickly by anger. "What are you doing here, Dominic? You know you're not supposed to come near me or Arya." He holds up his hands, his expression pleading. I know, but I had to see you. I've lost everything, Evelyn, my job, my money, even Tessa left me. I have nothing left." For a moment, I feel a flicker of pity, but then I remember all the pain he's caused, all the fear and heartache. "I'm sorry, Dominic," I say, my voice firm, "but that's not my problem anymore. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." His face twists with rage, and he takes a step forward. "You did this to me, you bitch. You ruined my life." But before he can say another word, Liam is there, stepping between us. "I think you should leave," he says, his voice calm but firm, "before I call the police." Dominic looks from Liam to me, his expression a mix of anger and desperation, but finally he turns and walks away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. As I watch him go, I feel a sense of closure wash over me. I know that he'll always be a part of my past, a shadow that I can never fully escape, but I also know that I'm stronger than he is. I've survived his abuse, his manipulation. I've built a life for myself and my daughter, a life filled with love and joy and possibility. And as I turn back to Liam, to the man who has shown me what true love and partnership can be, I know that I'm finally free. Free to live, to love, to be happy. And that's the greatest revenge of all.
I'm just going to use the restroom before we leave, I said, grabbing my purse with my phone and documents inside. I stepped off the train, feeling the cool air of the platform on my face. I stood there watching as the train doors closed, as the whistle blew, and as it slowly began to pull away from the station. My phone buzzed in my purse, snapping me out of my thoughts. Scott's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath and answered. "Nancy, where are you?" Scott's panicked voice came through. "We're not on the same path anymore, Scott," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm divorcing you." I hung up before he could respond. My hand shook as I opened my banking app and blocked Scott's access to our joint account. Barely a minute passed before my phone rang again. This time, it was Janet. I held the phone away from my ear as she shouted insults and threats, demanding that I pay for their trip and compensate them for emotional distress. When she finally paused for breath, I spoke calmly. "Janet, I'm not afraid of your threat. If you post any slander, I won't hesitate to take legal action." I blocked her number, then Scott's, and finally Larry's, just to be sure. Taking a deep breath, I called a cab and went home. The weekend passed in a blur of emotions and practical tasks. I packed Scott's belongings, contacted a lawyer, and drafted the divorce papers. By Friday morning, I felt drained but determined. The sound of a key turning in the lock made me tense. Scott walked in looking disheveled and desperate. "Nancy, please," he said, walking toward me with open arms. I stepped back, pointing to the suitcases by the door. "Your things are packed. It's time for you to go." His expression twisted. "You're not saying that." With a frantic tone, Scott declared, "I've learned my lesson." On the vacation, my mom and I got into a heated argument. I told them that I would no longer be paying for them. Even today, I'm not speaking with them. Please give me another opportunity. I gave him the divorce papers while shaking my head. "Scott, it's too late. This has more to do with respect, trust, and the life I want to lead than it does with your parents. Our desires may differ, and that's acceptable, but I'm at my limit now." Scott nodded after a drawn-out silence, his shoulders lowering in surrender. With a gentle click, he closed the door behind him as he scooped up his luggage and left. The weeks that followed were difficult, but they were also liberating. Thanks to my meticulous documentation and Scott's acceptance of the circumstances, the divorce procedure was completed without incident. I lost myself in my profession, turning to writing and cooking for solace. After everything calmed down, I discovered that I was alone once more, but not in the way I had dreaded. I once again found delight in the small things, like experimenting with new dishes, relaxing on quiet evenings with a good book, and interacting with my followers without feeling obligated to meet anyone's expectations. I had a glass of wine on my balcony one evening and enjoyed the view of the city. I couldn't resist grinning. Although my life hadn't gone as I had hoped, perhaps it had worked out perfectly. Isabella was myself again, a culinary critic, a writer, and most of all, a woman in charge of her own life. "Are you ready to leave yet?" I said as I cast a quick glance around the almost empty room. A sigh came out of my friend. With a hint of relaxation in their voice, they said, "Just waiting on the movers." To be honest, I won't miss you around, and it was a bit much the way you changed the locks, as if I was going to try to break in. The question of why such drastic measures were required had always intrigued me, but it now seemed almost unimportant. Kevin was a reserved man who was constantly worried about what other people thought when we first met. He was the perfect example of a henpecked spouse after being married. I had moved into my new place for a week when Kevin seemed desperate. "It's me. Open up," he asked. I pretended not to see him, reacting to his fear with an act of deceit. "I'm Carol, a 34-year-old who works 4 days a week as a part-time employee. 3 years have passed since Kevin and I exchanged vows. Even if we are childless, I think we may still be happy together. When we first got married, we used to talk about our future goals till the wee hours of the morning. We were both cautious at first, inexperienced in love, but I felt that we genuinely enjoyed one another's presence. One night I said to myself, let's be that couple that grows old together. Yes, that's a good concept. A boy and a girl, maybe 3 children. He concurred, saying, that's exactly what I was thinking. Even for someone who wasn't very interested in dating or marriage, these light-hearted conversations were enjoyable. It was a surprise to meet Kevin. We first spoke at a gathering that I went to out of duty rather than excitement. We grew closer as a result of our mutual indifference and the fact that he appeared to be there on similar pretenses. I considered him extremely charming at the time since he was serious, a little reserved, and always kind to me. Then he made an unexpected proposal. "Will you marry me, Carol? My goal is to see you smile." "How come? We're not even dating yet. Is that correct?" He firmly accepted his suggestion. His surprise inquiry didn't make me turn away. Rather, it got me thinking about the prospect of spending a lifetime with him. "Yes, I accept if that's okay with you." His happiness was contagious, and I suddenly saw why life occasionally deals us these unanticipated, unfortunate turns. I really thought that marrying Kevin would result in a happy future when he proposed. We married within 2 months of our initial meeting, indicating that we jumped right into marriage. Our trip was a little awkward at times due to our lack of romantic experience, but that just made it more exciting. But after moving in together, approximately a month in, I started to see a clear disconnect between my expectations and our marriage's reality. Kevin once came up to me with a more serious than normal expression. He continued earnestly, "Carol, there's something I need to discuss." When he suggested that I think about giving up my work to become a stay-at-home mom, I was shocked. He had never before voiced any displeasure with my work, so this request came as a surprise and signaled the start of an odd change in his conduct. "Why would you ask that?" I questioned, puzzled by his sudden change. "When you work, it makes me feel unneeded," he confessed. "Did someone suggest that to you?" I asked, trying to understand his sudden insecurity. "No, but at my company, all the other men's wives stay at home. It's just how things are there," he explained. I had been clear from the start of our marriage that I intended to keep working, especially since saving money was crucial for our plans. Kevin's new insistence baffled me. But we agreed I would continue working after we got married, didn't we? I reminded him. "I know, but as my wife, I hoped you'd consider my feelings." He responded, his concern more about fitting social norms than our mutual happiness. "Why not just pretend I've quit? There's no need for me actually to leave my job," I suggested, expressing my reluctance to give up my career. However, Kevin seemed increasingly worried about how others perceived him. "If things don't change, I'll be ridiculed by my colleagues and bosses. I'm supposed to be the head of this household, aren't I? Please just do as I ask," he pressed, unwilling to listen to my reasoning. "I can't make such a decision immediately." "Let me think about it," I said, needing time to weigh my options. "All right, but please decide soon," he urged, his tone urgent. I knew I couldn't let this issue drag on, fearing what might follow if I didn't act decisively. Seeking advice, I turned to my boss, Madison. She had worked as an administrative assistant since high school and had faced a similar situation with a controlling ex-husband, eventually leading to her divorce. Now she was a dedicated single mother and someone I greatly admired. That must have been tough, I mused, considering divorce as I reflected on her strength and resilience. Navigating the early days of our marriage, Kevin and I found ourselves at a complex juncture. It's tricky since we're newlyweds, I pondered, contemplating the implications of quitting my job. I haven't fully thought this through, but leaving my position will make it difficult to find a replacement. I shared my concerns with Madison, my boss, who had become a mentor to me. I don't plan to quit immediately, I explained. I'm looking for a way to keep working if possible. Perhaps we could maintain my current part-time schedule for the time being. Switching to full-time might draw too much attention. That's a wise approach, Madison agreed, supportive of my decision to negotiate with Kevin. If he still objects, we could propose reducing my hours officially to part-time. That sounds like a sensible plan. Remember, you can always count on me for advice. I'm here to support you. Madison reassured me, offering a lifeline in the turbulent sea of my marital issues. Thank you, I appreciate your support, I replied, grateful for her guidance. Our conversation deepened, and I discovered that Madison's ex-husband had also changed drastically after their marriage, a situation eerily similar to mine. This revelation was eye-opening. I hadn't considered that some men might transform so completely after marriage, becoming almost unrecognizable from the person they once were. Viewing my circumstances through this lens, I wondered if I had been misled. Despite numerous discussions, Kevin and I were at an impasse. Isn't it a woman's role after marriage to support her husband and manage the household? He argued, clinging to outdated norms. What era are you living in? Nowadays, it's common for both spouses to work, I countered, shocked by his archaic views. Maybe for other couples, but we're different. You see that, don't you? He tried to persuade me. I understand where you're coming from, but I can't agree with it. I stood my ground, asking him to consider my perspective. Kevin persisted daily, pressuring me to quit my job. Despite his efforts, they fell short. I consulted with Madison and decided to resign officially. However, in reality, I continued working part-time 4 days a week. Thankfully, Madison was sympathetic to my situation and agreed to reduce my hours. I've resigned from my job at the company, just as you wanted, I told Kevin. Really? Thank you. Now I can feel more secure about my position at work, he responded, relieved yet oblivious to the truth. By then, it was clear Kevin was primarily concerned with how others perceived him. His abrupt transformation left me bewildered. I chose to deceive him, continuing to work secretly in hopes of preserving our relationship and my independence. But I soon realized that my hopes for a fresh start were misplaced. Despite our new beginning, Kevin continued to exert his dominance and vent his frustrations on me. One day, he sprung a sudden request on me. A junior colleague is coming over today. I need you to host, he said abruptly. I had no idea, I responded, caught off guard. Sorry, it was a last-minute decision. Just keep it simple, please, he instructed. Determined to fulfill the request, I prepared drinks and snacks for the guests. However, when Kevin arrived, he was displeased. Didn't I ask you to prepare for today? He chided. You mentioned just keeping it basic, and you took that literally. This reflects poorly on me. I need you to fulfill your role as a wife properly. What exactly does that mean? I did my best. Is there an issue with what I prepared? I asked, genuinely confused by his dissatisfaction. No, not really, he muttered, his expression unreadable. a stark contrast to the person I once knew. From then on, Kevin began inviting guests over almost every week. While he reveled in the social gatherings, he expected me to be on standby, prepared for anything. It seemed he was trying to impress everyone with his capabilities as a husband. Kevin, having guests over every week seems excessive, I ventured one day. No, it's fine. Everyone enjoys it, and you should support my decisions. It's your duty as my wife. But maintaining such a lifestyle was also expensive. How exactly am I supposed to manage it? I asked. Oh, stop complaining. He would dismiss any question I had as nagging and avoided giving a direct answer. Every morning, I woke up early to prepare meals, make lunch sandwiches, and see Kevin off, all while keeping his suit ready for the day. On days I worked part-time, from 9:00 a.m. to 2:00 p.m., there was barely any time to rest. Despite the business, I cherished my job. Working often felt like a welcome respite. Carol, you seem tired lately. Are you okay? My coworker Deborah asked one day, noticing my fatigue. Yeah, a bit actually, I admitted. Let me know if there's anything I can do. I'm here to help in any way I can. Thank you, Deborah. You've been such a reliable support, unlike Kevin. Deborah understood the deterioration in how I was being treated. She was aware of my secret part-time job and had kept it hidden from Kevin. I appreciate everything, Deborah. I expressed my gratitude. Bill mentioned it, but I never imagined Kevin would behave like this, she confessed. Neither did I. I've tried talking to him, but he won't listen, and we hardly have a meaningful conversation anymore. I'm sorry. If only I were stronger. I sighed, feeling overwhelmed. Don't be too hard on yourself. You're managing work and household tasks admirably. I appreciate all your help. I'm glad to hear that, I replied, grateful for her kindness. Living with Deborah's support had been nothing but a positive experience for me, a stark contrast to the strain at home. However, Kevin seemed uncomfortable with how close Deborah and I had become. This discomfort led him to make a shocking and sudden decision. Where's Deborah? Mom's gone, I questioned, puzzled by her absence. What do you mean, gone? I asked, my confusion growing. Mom's getting older, and I thought it would be best for her to be in a facility, he replied nonchalantly. You actually placed her in a home? My voice cracked, barely hiding my disbelief. Yeah, just finished settling her into the new place. Now I have the house to myself, he stated as if he had just completed a routine chore. I was at my parents' home when this happened, and the fact that he unilaterally decided to place his mother in a facility shocked me. She was older, yes, but not to the extent that she required full-time care. It became clear to me that he had sent Deborah away to have the house to himself. When I visited Deborah at the facility, she looked surprised yet resigned. I'm sorry it had to come to this. I apologized. No, it's not your fault, Deborah reassured me. I never expected him to go to such lengths. I'm afraid of what he might do if I resist. I'll miss you, but I'll manage. If you need anything, you're always welcome here, she added, trying to offer some comfort. Thank you, I replied, feeling the weight of the situation. Afterward, we moved from our previous home into my in-laws' house. Despite managing the household diligently, Kevin never acknowledged my efforts or showed any gratitude. The idea of having children, once a topic of eager discussion, now seemed completely out of reach. Kevin often disregarded me, preferring to spend his time away from home. Additionally, he began imposing arbitrary rules. No matter how late he returned, I was required to stay awake until his arrival. If I happened to wake up later than him in the morning, he would become upset. What time will you be home today? I asked one evening. I'm not sure. Just stay up until I get back, okay? He instructed. One day, after a similar exchange, when Kevin returned home, I noticed something unusual. As I took his suit to hang it up, the air was fragrant, a sweet feminine scent that was unfamiliar to me, as I didn't wear perfume. It was unmistakable evidence of an affair. Whenever he came home late, I would catch whiffs of the same perfume. That day, he unusually suggested I go to bed before him, raising my suspicions even further. Quietly, I went to the living room and overheard their conversation. Oh, she's clueless. When are you going to leave her? A woman's voice asked. I'll kick her out soon enough, Kevin's voice responded. Clearly, their voices carried easily, especially the woman's, which was quite loud. From their discussion, it was evident that their relationship had been ongoing for some time. While the incident with the perfume didn't shock me, it left me feeling utterly disgusted. Kevin was still technically my husband, and despite my hopes for a turnaround, his treatment of me remained harsh and unchanging. As we approached the 3-year mark of our marriage, he sprung another surprise. I have a business trip the day after tomorrow. I need you to get everything ready, he announced abruptly. That's very short notice, I replied, the timing and suddenness raising my suspicions. I'll be away for about 4 days. Please make sure my clothes are prepared. I couldn't help but suspect his claim of a business trip was a cover for time spent with his mistress. I remembered a conversation with a colleague's wife at a company gathering who had warned me, be cautious if he suddenly mentions a business trip. Our company doesn't even have those. Her words echoed in my mind as I pieced things together. My suspicions had been confirmed earlier when I found a chat on his mobile phone, accidentally left in the living room, detailing how he had taken paid leave for this so-called trip. This discovery marked a turning point for me and signaled the beginning of the end of our marriage. Armed with proof of his affair, I prepared to confront him with divorce papers upon his return. However, it was Kevin who made the first move. Are you ready to leave? The movers will be here soon, he said coldly as soon as he returned home. I need you to be gone before I get back, he demanded. Why are you saying this all of a sudden? I countered, shocked by his blunt directive. You can't spring this on me and expect me to leave immediately. Then I'll wait a bit, but start preparing to leave, he replied, dismissing my objections. Goodbye. I never imagined that my once timid, overly concerned husband would transform into such a domineering partner, but this was the final straw. The future I once envisioned with him now felt like a distant memory. Living with such a man, I couldn't envision a bright future ahead. What comes next? I wondered aloud. This could get interesting. Has the mover arrived yet? No need to rush. They should be here soon, came the reply. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, I'm changing the locks on the house, he added almost casually. All right, got it, I responded, my heart sinking. The thought of not having to see your face again is a relief, were his parting words. After nearly 3 years of marriage, convinced our relationship was irreversibly over, I swiftly left the premises. Soon after, I instructed my lawyer to file for divorce. Despite our circumstances, my husband boldly posted pictures with his mistress on social media, an act of brazen audacity. How could he be so reckless, not realizing he was providing even more evidence of his affair? Even our mutual friends noticed his strange behavior, marking the public unraveling of what we once shared. After leaving my in-laws' home, I transitioned back to full-time work and moved into a high-rise apartment in the suburbs, a place I had long dreamed of living. The apartment was spacious, ideal for one, and felt wonderfully liberating without Kevin's presence. About a month after settling in, I was jolted one morning by the doorbell. Peering through the monitor, I was stunned to see Kevin standing outside. "Hey, it's me, Kevin." "Open up, Carol," he called out, his voice presumptuous and demanding. His sudden appearance and the entitlement in his tone were beyond my comprehension. Deciding to feign ignorance, I thought it might be more amusing than outright rejecting him. Who are you?" "I'm sorry, but I don't know you," I responded through the intercom. "Don't tell me you've forgotten your husband's face." "I'm not married. I think you've mistaken me for someone else." I continued watching as desperation seemed to wash over him, his face a shadow of the timid man I once knew. "Please just listen. I've been deceived and I need Carol's help," he pleaded. "I'm sorry, but I'm not obligated to assist you. If you persist, I'll have to call the police." "Seriously, after all, I don't know you," I retorted, steadfast in my resolve to treat him as a stranger. Kevin must have thought I would always be there to solve his problems, but I was no longer the person who tolerated such dependency. Yet he remained stubborn, unwilling to relent. "That's it. You made this mess, so it's up to you to fix it." "You don't have to be so tough on me," he whimpered. "Oh, and by the way, you can't stay at your parents' place anymore," he added abruptly. "What do you mean? Do you know whose name the house is under?" I questioned, surprised by his statement. "No, but it used to belong to Deborah." "Now it's in my name," I explained, revealing a significant change he was unaware of. Kevin had insisted I leave when I confided in Deborah, which visibly upset and disappointed her. "I can't believe my son has turned out like this. I'm truly sorry, especially after all the help you've given us," Deborah had said during one of our conversations. "Deborah, you're divorcing Kevin, aren't you?" she had asked. "Yes, it's for the best," I confirmed. "In that case, I'll transfer the house to you," she offered, making a decision that took both me and presumably Kevin by surprise. Naturally, I inquired why he had made a family card of his in-laws, as well, to which James chuckled and replied, "Because they are my family." "They must have one family card, right?" "Got a problem with that," he added. "You wouldn't have anything to say if you knew who helped you when no one was there." His strong tone took me off guard, and I had never heard that from him. Was James always like this? He said, "If you are grateful, then do better with my family. Then you will be family to me. In a sense, you are in some kind of trial period until then." I had never heard of a trial period in marriage. James went on, seeing I was quiet. "In other words, you're not fully part of the family yet. If you don't like it, you can leave any time. For now, our family is just the 6 of us." I was shocked. After that, I immediately canceled all our joint credit cards and moved out. "My name is Polly Cook, 30 years old. I'm a freelance illustrator. I used to work as a designer for a big advertising agency, but started on my own 5 years ago when I got married. Now I work from home. My parents died in an accident when I was young. I was raised by my maternal grandparents, but moved back to my parents' apartment near the city center for college. I've been living there ever since. I met my husband James at an Italian restaurant where he worked. It was a nice place with reasonable prices and good food, so my colleagues and I often went there. That's when James, the handsome waiter, became a topic of conversation. Indeed, he was good-looking. The manager once joked that a lot of the regulars came just to see James, and I could see why. I won't deny that I became one of James's fans because I thought he was really cool. He really stood out for some reason. We quickly became closer, and soon people were calling us a couple. Surprisingly, we ended up getting married. I don't remember much about that time. It's almost like I was in a daze. When I snapped out of it, I was married to a man I was calling my husband. But I loved James then and was happy when we got married. I quit my job as a designer at the company and started working independently. It was a friendly departure, and I continued the same kind of work, but on my own. James kept his job at the Italian restaurant, working different hours, sometimes late into the night. It became hard to work as usual, and I had always wanted to work independently, so I decided to go for it. It's a good idea, Polly. It'll be easier for you, and it's great to keep doing what you love. James supported my decision. That's how our life as newlyweds began. We both didn't care for flashy things, so we decided not to have a wedding ceremony and just officially registered our marriage. We met each other's families briefly, and that was it. James went to work, and I worked from home and did the household chores. Our schedules were irregular, but we kept in touch and waited to have meals together when we were both home. It was a happy, simple life, and I thought, marriage is nice. But about a year after we got married, everything fell apart. My family wants to come over. Is that okay? James asked one day. Of course, I said it was fine. I had only met and briefly talked to James's family at our initial meeting, so I thought this was a good chance to get to know them better. Having lost my parents at a young age, I always admired James's large family. But when his family of 5 arrived, I was left speechless. Hey, which room is mine? His sister asked as soon as she walked into our house. James's sister, who is 35 years old and 3 years older than both James and me, worked at a local supermarket. I was shocked by her rude behavior, so different from the polite greeting she gave me when we first met. James's 22-year-old sister was also there, but she was quiet and just stood there without saying a word. I remember she barely spoke when we first met. Hurried by James's sister, I showed the 2 sisters to the guest room and James's parents to the room that used to be my parents' room. It was the only Japanese-style room in the apartment, so I thought it would be best for them. After settling into their rooms, James's sister announced, "Well, since we're going to be living here together, you better start serving our family properly." I was confused by what she meant, but when I looked at James for help, he just laughed in a way I had never seen before. It turned out his family had given up their own home and moved into my apartment without telling me. Sorry, our family home suddenly had to be vacated, and they had nowhere to go, he explained. I wish he had told me earlier. I had thought it was just for a day or 3, and this was really inconvenient. When I mentioned this to James, trying not to upset him, he looked down and apologized. Please, just until they find somewhere else to go, he pleaded. I couldn't say no. How could I turn away people in need, especially the family of someone important to me, without even a place to go? I reluctantly agreed to live together on the condition that they find a new place as soon as possible. But I would come to regret this decision. James's family showed no restraint. All 4 of them, from the day they moved in, did nothing and left everything to me, saying whatever they wanted. They made no effort to look for a house or a job. When I asked about their jobs, I was in for another surprise. Oh, I quit that lousy supermarket job, she had said. She was employed, but apparently it was just part-time work. I had thought she worked full-time because of her age, but she told me she hadn't had a steady job since high school. James's parents also had part-time jobs, which they quit before coming here. And of course, James's other sister was unemployed. She had claimed she was a student, but that was not true. Why should I work when I've become part of a wealthy family? She asked. When I asked who she was talking about, I got another shocking reply. You, of course. You got a big settlement and insurance money from your parents' accident, and you don't even have a mortgage on this apartment. You can live without working, James's sister said, laughing. I complained to James when he got home, but he yelled in a way I had never seen before. Everyone's tired from suddenly having to leave their home. Let them rest for a while, or do you want to kick out my family, Polly? Stunned, I froze. Then James suddenly softened his tone. Sorry for yelling. I'm having a tough day too. Can you just be a little more patient? Looking back, James was skilled at manipulating situations with a mix of kindness and harshness. But at that moment, I didn't see it and agreed to endure a bit longer. The tyranny of James's family got worse. They treated me like a servant at home and demanded money when going out. We can't job hunt without a penny, can we? It's fine, but if we can't find work, we'll just keep living here, they said. I reluctantly gave them some money, which they claimed to have spent without finding jobs. They probably never looked for work, but if I said that, they would accuse me of lying without proof, and James's whole family would blame me for hours. Telling James didn't solve the problem. Everyone's frustrated about not finding jobs. Sorry, just bear with it a little longer. I'll talk to them, James said, trying to smooth things over. But as time went on, I felt like saying anything was pointless. However, the frequency of them asking for money gradually decreased, perhaps because James said something, so the issue seemed to resolve itself. Of course, the money I had given them was never returned. Then, after about 2 months of living this way, I noticed something alarming. Why is the credit card bill so high? Could it be unauthorized use? When I quickly checked the credit card statement, all the charges were made with family credit cards. The purchases included food, drinks, books, games, and even expensive brand bags and clothes. Each item was labeled with a number from 1 to 6, showing that 6 family credit cards had been issued. These credit cards were in my name, with James using the family cards. It seems like you'd be better at handling this, and it's more convenient to consolidate payments, right? Can I leave it to you? He had said, and I ended up managing them. But it turned out these family cards had been issued without me knowing. James's family stopped asking for money because they could now make credit card payments and cash withdrawals. When I confronted James about why he made family cards for his in-laws without asking me, he laughed and said, "Well, you complain when they say they have no money, so what choice do I have? Besides, you know who took you in when you were all alone, right? Can you really say such things to the important family of your benefactor?" I was stunned into silence by his bold tone, unlike anything I had heard before. Was James always like this? If you're grateful, you should serve my family more. Then I'll acknowledge you as family too. Until then, consider it like you're on a trial period, he continued. I had never heard of a trial period in marriage. Seeing my silence, James pressed further. This means you're not yet an official family member. If you don't like it, you can leave any time. Right now, it's just the 5 of us in our family. Useless parasites get out. That's when I realized James's true nature. I felt as if all the blood had drained from my body. Shocked, I considered divorcing James. In fact, I began to wonder why I had married James in the first place. Initially, I just thought he was a handsome guy. Like the other girls, I was just excited about him being handsome without any particular reason. Then one time, when I went to the restroom, James approached me. "You seem different from other people, Polly." I don't know, kind of mystical. Sorry, it's not something I should say to a customer. I was surprised but kept listening, and I gradually started to pay more attention to James. Maybe that was his plan, to make me like him. When I think about it calmly, it makes sense. I remember once when James came to our table for small talk, a colleague jokingly said I was a wealthy lady living alone in a condo. It was right after that he started talking to me, probably because he was interested in my wealth and the condo. Honestly, James wasn't really my type. To put it nicely, he was modern. To put it bluntly, he seemed a bit frivolous. I liked mature men who spoke quietly and seriously. But somehow, I ended up falling for James. I always found that strange since James was the typical handsome guy, and it must have been easy for him to charm a woman, especially someone like me who was new to the workforce and not used to men. I fell for his tactics and ended up marrying him. This thought made me feel so frustrated and embarrassed. I felt like destroying everything in the house, but I wasn't foolish enough to act on that impulse. Instead, I decided to get revenge. To do that, I needed to endure this life a little longer, just like James manipulated me. I planned to control his entire family. The condo we live in was bought by my father with a mortgage soon after I was born. It wasn't very expensive back then, but the area developed rapidly with a new shopping center nearby, and now it's considered a luxury condo. My parents, hoping for more children, bought a spacious condo. That's why there's enough room even with James's family moving in. But even with its decent size, having James's family around is a nuisance for me, especially working from home. I'm enduring this only for the sake of revenge. As James' sister said, there's no mortgage payment for this condo. When I was 4, both of my parents died in a car accident. They were coming back from my paternal grandfather's funeral when they collided with a speeding car on the freeway. That day, I was supposed to go with my parents, but I caught the flu that's going around and had a high fever. So my maternal grandparents came to the condo where we lived with my parents to take care of me, leaving me as the only one who survived. The mortgage payments were covered by the group credit life insurance, so the only housing costs I pay are the management fees and property taxes. James, seeing the amount, said he would contribute just a bit more than that to our household expenses. There's no mortgage, so if I put in that much, we should manage with Polly's income, right? We'll each use our own earnings for personal expenses. Sounds good, doesn't it? I agreed, thinking maybe he was right. Until then, I had been paying for everything by myself, so I thought his contribution would lighten my load. Looking back, it was foolish, but at the time, I was blinded by my love for James and just went along with whatever he said. James probably thinks he's the head of the household and the one supporting me, which is why he can so easily call me a parasite. But in reality, it's different. I pay for most of the expenses like utilities, food, social expenses, and entertainment. Now 5 real parasites had been added to my household, making it impossible to manage with just that amount. I wanted to get rid of them as soon as possible, but I pretended not to notice and endured. I gritted my teeth and let James's family freely shop, reminding myself that I'll be the one laughing in the end. Then 5 months after deciding to divorce, the date of act finally came. I'm tired. Please decide. It's either me or your family, I told James, presenting him with a final decision. He was surprised, but I continued without concern. None of your family members lift a finger to help around the house. They just dump all their chores on me. You know I work from home. I'm not just playing around. Yet they treat me like a freeloader and tell me to know my place since you're supporting me. I've had enough, I cried. I confronted James. He smirked at me and said, "Then you should leave." Didn't I tell you before? You're not really part of this family yet. Giving up like this means you didn't earn your place in the family. I acted shocked as I looked at him. What are you surprised about? If you can't live with my family, then you're the one who has to leave. Oh, and since I'm not at fault, I'll take this apartment as alimony, and I'll take half of your savings as part of the property division. Ah, so that was his plan all along. That's why his whole family kept harassing me, trying to drive me out. I knew it, but hearing it said outright was still a shock. It was someone I once loved and even married. But thanks to this, I made up my mind. Fine, I said, deciding to divorce James. But this condo is mine, and I'm not at fault either. What did you say? James seemed shocked that I outright rejected his proposal, not expecting such a response. It made sense as I had always complied with his demands since our marriage. Thinking back on it made me angry. I don't want to spend another second with you all, so I'll leave now, but you should also prepare to leave. It's a joke, right? This is our home. We won't leave. Ever heard of residential rights? You can't just force people out who live here, James shouted. Ignoring his ranting, I left the house and went to my grandparents' place. I explained everything and asked if I could stay until things were settled. My grandparents were shocked to learn what I had gone through and scolded me for not consulting them earlier. With tears in their eyes, I apologized. Grandma, Grandpa, I'm sorry for worrying you, but I'll be okay now. I look fragile, but I'm not really, I said, forcing a laugh with tears in my eyes. The day after I left the apartment, James contacted me right away. Hey, what's this all about? What are you referring to? I asked about the certified mail. I was impressed by how quickly things were moving. I had handed the divorce proceedings over to a lawyer, and when I told them yesterday that I was leaving the house, they arranged for everything to be sorted out today. I'm not paying any alimony, and I'm not leaving the condo, James declared. But legally, he had an obligation to pay, and he didn't have the right to continue living in that apartment. What are you talking about? That apartment is mine too since we're married. If you insist, then pay me half its value to buy me out, he said. Such an absurd claim. Talking like this is getting us nowhere. Please communicate through my lawyer from now on, I said, ending the call. I knew he would probably call again tomorrow, but I had no desire to talk anymore that day. As expected, he called the next morning. Hey, what's this all about? He repeated the same line as yesterday, showing no creativity. What are you referring to? The card's not working. What did you do? What I did was cancel it. That card was mine, and you were just using the family card, remember? Indeed, before leaving the house, I had switched all the contracts from that card to another and canceled it. Of course, the family cards would stop working when I canceled mine. I was the one paying for it. Yes, you paid the apartment's management fee and property taxes just for the first 4 months. It's not much, but I can deduct that from the alimony if you like. I mocked him. I heard some indistinct shouting from the other end of the phone. That's right. James only paid the agreed amount for just 4 months. He made various excuses about the store and whatnot, always finding a reason to ask me to wait. But then he stopped paying altogether. If he forgot and thought he was still paying, that's some poor memory. But I didn't care anymore. He's someone I'm cutting ties with. His memory doesn't matter to me. That's the situation, so please pay your half of the living expenses I've been covering. I've kept a detailed record of our household expenses, which I'll use as evidence to fairly divide our savings. It's marital property, he demanded. Yes, I understand. Let's split it accordingly, I agreed. He ended the call with a reminder not to forget. A few days later, I got another call from him using the same line. I realized they lacked not only memory, but also vocabulary. What do you mean by the split of shared property? Why is it 0? You must be rolling in cash from your parents' insurance and alimony, he said. Ah, so that's what they were thinking. I patiently explained that my savings before marriage weren't part of the shared property, and since we had no savings after marriage, it naturally amounted to 0. Don't lie to me. If you think I'm lying, why don't you consult with someone? From now on, please communicate through my attorney. I won't be speaking to you directly anymore. Goodbye, I said, then hung up the phone and blocked James's number. 1 month after I left the house, James and his family finally moved out of the apartment. Not because they had a change of heart, but because they couldn't sustain their lifestyle. Naturally, James's income alone wasn't enough for a family of 5. They were used to shopping extravagantly with my card. Telling them to cut back now was impossible. I had let them use the card intentionally, knowing it would come to this. His family started pestering James for shopping money, and when he refused, they began stealing from his wallet. Even when James got angry, they blamed him for kicking me out. To top it off, the electricity, gas, and water were all shut off. Of course, I had arranged for that since I didn't plan to live there for a while. James tried to get the utilities restored immediately by phone, but the house was in my name, so no one else could reconnect them if the owner had stopped them. During the hot summer and early fall, his family couldn't handle the extreme heat and eventually left the condo. Where they went, I neither know nor care. James tried to stay until the end, but he eventually gave up because there was no electricity and he couldn't bathe. The divorce proceedings went faster than expected, not because James had a change of heart, but because he made mistakes. He cheated on me while we were still married, or rather he started making moves on someone thinking he could kick me out soon. He boasted about owning a luxury apartment in a prime location downtown, using it to attract young girls. It's surprising he did this while his family was around, but he had a history of such behavior, so they didn't mind. Before leaving, I had installed cameras in several places in the house, which captured all the evidence. Maybe he underestimated me, but he really did disrespect me. He brought his family into my home without my permission, made a family card, left me the bill, kicked me out, and cheated on me. I demanded a hefty sum in alimony for all these. When James saw the amount, he turned pale and desperately pleaded for reconciliation. But I had no such intentions. Knowing he couldn't pay, I made him borrow as much as possible from his company and took whatever I could get. When I threatened to sue him for fraud over the family card, he reluctantly agreed to my terms. Well, I hope he does his best to pay off his debt. The divorce is finalized, and I'm still staying at my grandparents' place. I haven't decided what to do with the apartment yet. I might sell it. I treasured it because my parents left it to me, but since they passed away when I was very young, and I have no memories of them, plus all this has happened, I think they'd understand if I let it go. My work as an illustrator is picking up. I might live alone again, but it's a good time for that. I can work just fine staying at my grandparents'. I'll depend on them a little longer, then move forward with strength. Next time, I won't be fooled by a man who's only good-looking. I hope to find a partner I can share my life with.